2 months, 2 Passover feasts, 2 unleavened bread festivals, Numbers 9. This study from Numbers 9 was written by Moses about 1490 BC. Comparisons will be made to the time of King Hezekiah, around 726 BC. This was before the 10 northern tribes of Israel were scattered. Important and lingering questions are, if we miss the first month Passover, do we celebrate Passover in the second month? Should we also celebrate the 7 days of unleavened bread? Why is this such an important question about the second month Passover and celebration of the unleavened bread festival? Is it a salvational issue? Note, as many around the world discover the covenant commands of Yahuwah's calendar, they prepare to honor those commands. Email questions are something like this. Quote, we missed covenant calendar. We missed the covenant calendar Passover because we were on the lunar calendar. Since discovering the moon has nothing to do with the covenant month count, shall we celebrate the Passover in the second month? Also, do we celebrate the 7 days of unleavened bread festival? At this time, the covenant calendar study on Numbers 9 was not completed. This study will provide the answer, perhaps with a surprise. Will 2 Passover feasts, to include eating unleavened bread, instigate the celebration of 2 unleavened bread festivals in 2 months? This is another Daystart study that has its roots in the Exodus 12 Passover from Egypt. First, a short review of the Dawn Daystart before opening the study questions for this topic of a second Passover celebration in the second month. Review of Daystart terminology. 1 complete cycle is the 24-hour day. The term season distinguishes the 2 time frames comprising of the light season and the night or dark season. This study will be divided into 4 major parts. Part A, review of the commencement time for the Passover day, the Passover meal, and the unleavened bread festival in the first month, referred to as Aviv. Question. From Elohim's instructions in the scriptures that directly pertain to the Passover, do we see the new 24-hour cycle beginning at dawn or sunset? Why ask this question? If we are going to observe the Passover correctly, we want to be sure we start it on time, not early and not late. Part B, Passover and the unleavened bread festival in the second month. The second Passover also has the command to eat unleavened bread with the Passover meal, Numbers 9:11. Does this command to eat unleavened bread at the Passover meal give reason to believe a second unleavened bread festival must begin the following day? Part C, Hezekiah's unleavened bread festival in the second month, from Chronicles, 2 Chronicles 30. King Hezekiah did not perform the Passover and unleavened bread festival during the first month. Did he lead the people to observe 2 festivals of unleavened bread in the second month after the performance of the second month Passover? Why did he do this? Was that decision within the Torah guidelines? Was King Hezekiah misleading Yahuwah's people? Today, some believe that we should be keeping the Passover only in the second month, no matter what. Does or will the Torah support this practice? Part D, surprise revealed. Will the surprise have something to do with a command in Numbers 9? Will it matter who uttered the command and why? Will the surprise have something to do with King Hezekiah? Was King Hezekiah allowed to institute a new command and be outside the boundaries of Torah? Part A, Passover commencement for the day and meal. What is the traditional belief among most feast keepers for the commencement time of Passover? Most believers who observe the weekly Sabbath, annual Sabbaths, and non-Sabbath feast days calculate the beginning of these feasts to commence at the sunset moment from the previous cycle. Although many insist and believe that this is not confusing, invariably, it is always confusing. How can this be? The riddle. Let's use the example of April 3rd for Passover on the Roman calendar. Everyone is agreed that April 3rd is Passover, but the two questions that always need to be answered are, does Passover begin at sunset on April 2nd? Or does Passover begin at sunset on April 3rd? Two confusing answers? Prevalent in traditional understanding today is the belief that every festival of Passover begins at the sunset moment at the close of the 13th light season in the first month. On the Roman calendar, that would mean sunset of April 2nd for an April 3rd day season Passover. How many have experienced this trouble as well? You've heard the sunset answer, but there is always someone who asks again, just to make doubly sure. In that case, we need to solve the Passover commencement riddle before we can address the issue of the commencement for the festival of unleavened bread. That Passover commencement riddle was solved in the Exodus 12 study. If you haven't seen it, please make arrangements to receive your own copy. The Exodus 12 study is also based on the definition of the dawn design. But first, let's review the dawn design again. This order, by divine design, was declared for the earth through the blueprint of Zion, the heavenly city of Yahuwah. Yahushua implemented this plan for us on the first day of creation, found in Genesis 1, verses 1 through 5. Then he declared every 24-hour cycle to include a full light season and night or dark season. This order initiates every new cycle with dawn, not sunrise or sunset. The order is also authenticated through simple testimonies of awe-inspiring scripture accounts. Dawn is preserved and illustrated countless times. This divine institution is currently being restored. Next, chart 1 of 2 will demonstrate how the Passover commencement is to be discerned in either the first or second month. Note these definitions for all the charts. Remember, a cycle is a light and night or dark season, a 24-hour time segment, whereas a season is the light or night season. Each time segment varies in time. The 14th cycle of 24 hours begins and ends with dawn. The sanctuary sacrifices of the lamb were at dusk, not 3 p.m., according to Exodus 12:6. The Passover meal begins after dusk. Eat the flesh in that night. Yahushua labels this night season with the divine title of Passover. It is Passover, one feast, one dawn to dawn 24-hour cycle, which culminates later in the night season, according to Genesis 1. Leave none of the lamb's remains until the morning. That morning that starts the 15th cycle, Exodus 12 and 10. Now that you've had a moment to enjoy the chart, let's do a brief review from the Exodus 12 study, along with some additional scriptures. The Passover meal will be eaten between the evenings on the 14th cycle of the month. Leviticus 23:5 reads, "In the 14th day of the first month, at even, is Yahuwah's Passover." Also see Exodus 12:18 that reads, "In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month in the evening." At even is H6153. Erev, dusk, evening tide of the day, to grow dusky at sundown, night. The Passover meal continues through the night hours of the 14th day of the month. In the evening is to be understood as between the evenings, or the night season time frame. Exodus 12:8, "And they shall eat the flesh in that night," H39:15, Lail, "roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it." Night is H39:15, Lail, night as opposed to day, of gloom, protective shadow. The Passover lamb leftovers must be disposed of before morning of the 15th day of the month. If any part of the lamb is left over, Exodus 12:10 states this, quote, "Do not leave any of it until the next day. Whatever is not eaten that night must be burned before morning." Don't eat any of it the next day. If all of it is not eaten that night, burn what is left. Deuteronomy 16:4, "And no leaven should be seen with you in all your border for 7 days. Neither should any of the meat which you slaughter in the evening on the first day stay all night until the morning." Morning, H12:42, Boker, morning, break of day, morning, of end of night, of coming of daylight, of coming of sunrise, of beginning of day, of bright joy after night of distress, figurative. Morrow, next day, next morning. The scriptures are very clear that once dawn appears, there better not be any lamb leftovers. Why? Type. Lamb leftovers had to be out of sight and disposed of before dawn. Antitype. The Messiah must be out of sight and buried before the arrival of dawn. Dawn ushers in a new 24-hour cycle that is separate from the Passover celebrations during its night season. Dawn is no longer the 14th day of the month, but rather the dawning of the 15th new 24-hour cycle. Review. Activities pertaining for the complete Passover begin at dawn on the 14th cycle. Evening sanctuary sacrifices were at even or dusk in Torah. Note that an unwarranted change to the traditional ninth hour, or in Roman times, 3 p.m., or in Roman time, 3 p.m. in the Gospels, was not original to the command. Passover meals are to be eaten between the evenings, meaning between the twilights in that night of the 14th cycle, according to Exodus 12:8, Numbers 9:3. It is commanded to eat unleavened bread with the Passover meal. Any Passover sacrifice leftovers are to be burned before the arrival of dawn on the 15th cycle. Both the first and second month Passovers will use the full 24 hours of the 14th cycle to complete all divine commands. You want to see again Exodus 12:10, Numbers 9:12 for understanding the phrase until the morning. Question: regarding the Passover festival in the first month, can scripture prove that the festival of unleavened bread starts at the same time as the eating of the Passover meal with the Aviv 14 sunset moment? According to the prevalent sunset theory, this sunset moment is the beginning of Aviv 15. Read the words in the following box. Have you heard this unusual line of reasoning from the sunset believers for justifying Passover on two separate 24-hour cycles of the month, i.e. the 13th and the 14th, or the 14th and the 15th? Quote, "It is very obvious that Passover is the start of the unleavened bread, of the festival of unleavened bread on the night of Aviv 14, because 1, the Passover meal is commanded to be eaten with unleavened bread, and 2, Aviv begins with sunset." Does that sound familiar? If you've heard this line of reasoning, then hopefully you know by now that this is directly opposed to the scriptural evidence, because everything to do with Passover is found within only one 24-hour cycle, not two. Therefore, a partial conclusion is summarized in these initial review points. The command to consume unleavened bread during the Passover meal of the night season is not a command that commences the 7-day festival of unleavened bread. 2, the festival of unleavened bread cannot begin until the dawning of the 15th of Aviv. 3, Yahuwah does give a full 24-hour cycle to the Passover day that does not infringe on the beginning festival hours of unleavened bread. To learn more, visit studythecalendar.com, the Exodus 12 Unleavened Bread Consumption Schedule Study. Now that the foundation for the Passover in the first month has been established, it's time to ask the next question. Does every pattern of Passover with unleavened bread, with the unleavened bread festival in the first month, repeat in the exact same pattern in the second month? Part B, second month Passover and unleavened bread festival. Let's clarify terminology for definitions of feasts and festival terms. Passover day, Passover feast, and Passover festival are terms that are used quite interchangeably. All three of these terms can be used to designate only one 24-hour cycle of the Passover day itself, or these terms can be understood to mean the full the full 8 24-hour cycles of the springtime festival, including the feast or festival of unleavened bread and wave sheaf or first fruits. The term Passover is also used to describe the Passover sacrifice, which is not connected to a time frame. Feast of Unleavened Bread is another term that is used loosely or indiscriminately. It can designate the first meal at the actual Passover, eaten with unleavened bread on the 14th of the first month, or the term can be understood to describe the 7 days of the festival of unleavened bread. Luke 22:1 says, quote, "Now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh, which is called the Passover," end quote. In the context of this verse, Luke appears to be referring to the Passover meal as the festival of unleavened bread, but the context is the Passover feast as the unleavened bread feast. Of course, this Passover day is also the 24-hour cycle that kicks off, immediately precedes, in other words, the specific 7-day springtime festival of unleavened bread. However, unleavened bread is eaten on all 8 days. Fact: the eating of unleavened bread at the Passover Erev or evening meal does not command the festival of unleavened bread to begin at that time, as the sunset day start promotes. Question 1. Does the command to eat unleavened bread at the meal of the Passover in the second month also command another 7-day festival of unleavened bread to follow the second Passover in the second month? In other words, if one misses the full Passover festival of the first month, are the instructions for the first month Passover exactly the same for the celebration of the Passover in the second month? And are we supposed to celebrate another 7 days of unleavened bread in this second month? Question 2. Some feel the only Passover to be celebrated today is always and only the Passover of the second month, no matter what. Will these instructions be located in the Torah? Perhaps part C regarding Hezekiah will have answers for this question. Preparation for the rest of the study. This part of the study is going to demonstrate a unique difference between the festivals celebrated in the first month and the second month. The celebration of the Passover in the second month was a provision for those to partake only if they missed the Passover in the first month, according to Numbers 9, verses 6 through 12, due to the following circumstances. 1, if they were ceremonially unclean due to touching a dead body. 2, if they were traveling or on a long journey. See Numbers 9 and 10. Passover similarities. Note that both Passovers were on the 14th day of the month, accompanied with the eating of unleavened bread. Note also that both Passover meals could be called a feast of unleavened bread. Passover differences. The 7-cycle festival of unleavened bread with its 2 unleavened bread Sabbaths followed the first Passover. Will the rest of this study, including part C, reveal that a 7-day or 7-cycle festival of unleavened bread does not follow the second Passover? The Passover festival on Aviv 14 and the unleavened bread festival on Aviv 15 are closely connected. Therefore, it is extremely important to know how to recognize the starting point for the first yearly Passover festival in order to know how to discern the starting point for the festival of unleavened bread. That part of the exercise is complete, and we are now ready to concentrate on the Passover for the second month. Traditional belief of feast keepers for the additional festival of unleavened bread. Texts pertaining to the eating of unleavened bread for any Passover meal are found in Exodus 12:8, 15, and 18, Deuteronomy 6:3, and Numbers 9:3 and 11. All instructions are the same except the instructions found in Numbers 9, where we find the commands given are specifically for a second Passover being celebrated in the second month. Yes, indeed, many claim, quote, any unleavened bread eaten at any Passover meal is proof that the festival of unleavened bread begins with the Passover meal, whether it is eaten in the first month or the second month. So if Yahushua has changed any of the requirements for the second Passover from the original pattern found in the first Passover, then we should expect notification of such changes according to Amos 3:7. Surely Elohim will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. In this study, we will be watching to see if such instructions do exist. It is very significant that Yahushua, in his infinite mercy and desire to save mankind, gave another opportunity under certain conditions to participate in the observance of the Passover in the second month. The scriptures show unleavened bread was a definite requirement for the Passover meals in both months. But did the presence of unleavened bread always necessitate the observance of a second 7-cycle celebration for the festival of unleavened bread in the second month? In the verses of Numbers 9:1-12, we want to pay careful attention to the context and grammar to see if anything can be detected that commands another 7-day celebration for the festival of unleavened bread. 1, does the command really exist? 2, does the eating of unleavened bread with any Passover meal dictate or demand the celebration of the 7 full 24-hour cycles of the unleavened bread? Of the festival of unleavened bread? 3, will the scriptural example effectively eliminate the foundation for making the following claim or not? Here's the claim. According to sunset theory, the sunset moment begins the new day. Many assume the second Passover follows the exact same pattern as the first Passover, celebrating the unleavened bread festival for the 7 days. It seems that the eating of unleavened bread in the second Passover has become the command to celebrate a second festival of unleavened bread in the second month from days 15 through 21. Remember that lingering question. Does every pattern of the Passover and unleavened bread festival in the first month repeat in the exact same pattern in the celebration of the Passover for the second month? That question now leads into the next part of the study, as the foundation for the Passover in the second month has now been established. At this point, it would be best to read the scriptural account for the specifics of the second Passover celebration in Numbers 9, verses 1-14, for a comprehensive view of what is going to be discussed next. Numbers 9, 1-12. Instructions for the second Passover. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the first month of the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at his appointed season. In the 14th day of this month, at even, ye shall keep it in his appointed season. According to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, shall ye keep it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel, that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at even, in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahuwah commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel. Next, a problem arises for Aviv Passover participation. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of Yahuwah in his appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said to them, Stand still, and I will hear what Yahuwah will command concerning you. The solution to the problem is presented here. A new law is formed after the book of the covenant commands were given. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yahuwah. Two solutions are presented, one for uncleanness, and two for being on a long journey. The 14th day of the second month at even, they shall keep it, and shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. But the man who is clean and is not in a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of Yahuwah in his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto Yahuwah, according to the ordinances of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. Ye shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. Did you notice Numbers 9 does not mention a 7-day festival of unleavened bread in the second month? The unleavened bread is eaten at the Passover meal in the second month, but there seems to be a deafening silence regarding the 7-cycle festival of unleavened bread during the second month, from the 15th through the 21st. This obvious silence should be speaking and getting our attention. What are your answers to the following 4 perceptions or misconceptions? Yahusha ordered the festival of unleavened bread to begin with sunset. Is that true or false? Yahusha required the celebration of a second festival of unleavened bread. Is that true or false? The eating of unleavened bread at the second Passover meal automatically ushered in another festival of unleavened bread. True or false? According to sunset theory, as the sunset ushers in the 15th day, the Passover ends and the festival of unleavened bread begins. True or false? Note, does the Passover festival end at sunset, even if the Passover meal is still in progress? Yes or no? The answers to the true or false questions are in this study with a basic search. The term sunset theory has been mentioned several times. What does this really mean? What is a theory? Webster's 1828 note. Only the first definition applies. Theory, noun, speculation, a doctrine or scheme of things, which terminates in speculation or contemplation without a view to practice. Note, if the sunset day commencement cannot be found in Torah or the rest of Scripture, then there is no view to practice. It is merely speculation. The passages from Numbers 9, 10 through 12 are in need of a closer review. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yahuwah. The 14th day of the second month at even, they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. Let's define ordinances to be sure of the meanings. We'll compare H2706 with H2708. Ordinances, H2706. Chok, from H2710, an enactment, hence an appointment of time, space, quantity, labor, or usage. Now compare to ordinances as H2708. Ordinances. Chukah, feminine, of H2706, and meaning substantially the same. Conclusion. The ordinances of verse 12, as masculine H2706, relate to Yahuwah's ordinances, or his appointed times that are to be honored according to his instructions. The ordinances as H2708 belong to the bride. She is instructed to keep the exact same appointed times and to guard them. The Passover in the second month also qualifies as an ordinance to be kept upon certain conditions, such as uncleanness or delay from a long journey. The context of verse 10 is, keep the Passover after dusk or in the night season. Yahushua declares the timing with his voice to Moses in Numbers 9, verse 11. The 14th day of the second month between the evenings, the darkness, they shall keep it and eat it. What specific time was the second month Passover meal to be eaten? At after even, or in the night. That's the same pattern found in Exodus 12:8 and Leviticus 23:5, addressed earlier. Remember, Numbers 9:12 reinforces this truth. The full 14th cycle of the second month stretches to dawn of the 15th cycle, giving the people the full Passover night season to take care of the Passover lamb leftovers. Numbers 9:12 of the New Living Translation states this, quote, "They must not leave any of the lamb until the next morning, and they must not break any of its bones. They must follow all the normal regulations concerning the Passover. This includes no adding and no taking away of any Torah commands as found in Deuteronomy 4:2 and 12:32. Remember, if any part of the lamb is left over, Exodus 12:10 had the first explicit instructions, quote, do not leave any of it until the next day. Whatever is not eaten that night must be burned before morning. Recall the type-antitype comparison given earlier. Now, let us put these points together for a summary of the second Passover. Yahushua's voice states, the Passover festival could be observed in the second month. The Passover requirements missed the first Passover due to being unclean or on a long journey. The Passover sacrifice at the sanctuary was offered at the evening twilight. The Passover meal begins between the evenings on the 14th cycle. Passover food, unleavened bread, is commanded to be eaten with the lamb. And the Passover lamb leftovers were to be disposed of before the morning of the 15th. Here's our witness. Yahushua declares the details of the second Passover night season on the 14th of the second month is the same as the first month. For the second Passover, however, there was only one difference. Numbers 9 does not mention the second Passover is followed by another 7-day festival of unleavened bread. Because this is so, that raises further questions. Question 1. Can we identify a minimum of 2 or 3 witnesses from the scriptures that will assure us Yahushua has not given a definite command to celebrate the festival of unleavened bread immediately following the second Passover festival? Question 2. If there is another festival of 7 days of unleavened bread, would that change the Omer count and the specific appointed times of all the feast Sabbaths and festivals to follow? Following are 7 witnesses that can be found. All of them mention Aviv, or the first month, and the command to eat unleavened bread either for 7 days or from the 15th to the 21st day of the first month. First witness, Exodus 12:2, 15, and 18. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at even, ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at even. Witness 2, Exodus 13:4 and 6. This day came ye out in the month of Aviv. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread. Witness 3, Exodus 23:15. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month of Aviv. Witness 4, Exodus 34:18. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee, in the time of the month Aviv. For in the month Aviv thou camest out from Egypt. Leviticus 23, verses 5 and 6. In the 14th day of the first month, at even, is Yahuwah's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Yahuwah. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. Witness 6, Deuteronomy 16, verses 1, 3, and 8. Observe the month of Aviv and keep the Passover, for in the month of Aviv, Yahuwah thy Elohim brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread. 6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread. And on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to Yahuwah thy Elohim. Witness 7, Numbers 28, verses 16 and 17. And in the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of Yahuwah. And in the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. Take note in the 7 witnesses below whether there is any command, any extra command given regarding the eating of unleavened bread for a 7-day festival in the 2nd month. Do we see that? Let's review how Numbers 9 is laid out. Numbers 9 requirement for second Passover. Consequence for being unclean for first Passover. Numbers 9 verses 3 through 6. In the 14th day of this month at even, ye shall keep it in his appointed season, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, shall ye keep it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at even in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahuwah commanded Moses. So did the children of Israel. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. Numbers 9 solution for participating in the second Passover. Numbers 9, 9 through 12. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yahuwah. The 14th day of the 2nd month at even, they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. Next, chart 2 lays out the requirements for Passover in the 2nd month. Chart 2 of 2, 2nd month Passover, dawn format. You'll note that dawn begins the 14th cycle. And that cycle is 24 hours, ending at dawn of the 15th cycle. 2nd month Passover is 24 hours. Passover sacrifices are slain in the second month and 14th day during dusk. Feast keepers prepare to eat the lamb when roasted. Unleavened bread and bitter herbs are eaten with the Passover lamb on this Passover night of the 14th day. There is no claim that the unleavened bread festival begins at even with this Passover meal. Note the command to leave none of the lamb's remains until the morning of the 15th cycle of the month. Numbers 9:12, Exodus 12:10. As each new cycle begins with dawn, Zion's style is accurate and simple. It's easy to calculate when the 15th cycle begins, whether in the first month or the second month. The traditions of sunset theory cannot be supported with scriptural proof. Numbers 9, conclusion thus far. Keep the second Passover or face judgment. Numbers 9, 13, and 14. Those who failed to keep the Passover were cut off, even with the alternate arrangements. So, forming a semi-conclusion on the matter, there are 7 very well-defined and specific witnesses that proclaim the requirement for observing the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days following the Passover in the first month. However, there is not one word about observing the festival of unleavened bread or eating unleavened bread for another 7 days following the second Passover in the second month. Therefore, in the second month, only the Passover meal was observed, with the command to eat unleavened bread and bitter herbs. The scriptures reveal this very important fact. Yahushua did not give a command to keep the festival of unleavened bread in the second month. Yet, Yahushua gave a very definitive instruction to eat the Passover meal in the second month with unleavened bread. It is well to remember, when we choose to serve Yahushua in everything, we also seek to be in alignment with him in all areas, even if they seem small and insignificant. But what about King Hezekiah? Scripture documents very well that he had a huge, successful Passover in the second month, followed with 2 sets of 7-day celebrations. Were both festivals of unleavened bread? This investigation will uncover an interesting outcome. Part C, Hezekiah's Unleavened Bread Festival in the second month. Newfound gem in this study for the clarity of the second month Passover celebrations. It may seem there's a controversy between Numbers 9 and 2 Chronicles 30, because the celebration of the 7-day festival of unleavened bread was indeed recorded and kept in the second month under the leadership of King Hezekiah. Remember, in 1490 BC, 1 year after the Mount Sinai covenant was given, we see that Numbers 9 does not prescribe the celebration of a 7-day festival of unleavened bread following the Passover in the second month. The text neither mentions any details about a Feast of Unleavened Bread following a second month Passover, nor does it address any circumstance that might warrant 2 consecutive 7-day festivals of unleavened bread. By 725 BC, 2 Chronicles 30 presents the history of King Hezekiah. 775 years after Moses died and roughly 235 years after the Passover of King Solomon in 960 BC. Were two festivals of unleavened bread observed by King Hezekiah? Was King Hezekiah in violation of Torah commands? Proponents of position A, the second Passover also, or B, the second Passover only, cite the following as the basis for their conclusions. Remember, we're just all doing our best. No one is really able to truly obey the Moedim instructions today in keeping his annual feast and set apart days in earnest anyway. The best one can do is remember or memorialize the festivals until Messiah returns and fully restores. Because of this, believers should be gracious in recognizing that we all see in part and dimly. 2, or be in a journey afar off, from Numbers 9:10. Proponents apply the impediment of being away on a journey to themselves, considering themselves Ephraim, the northern kingdom, prodigal sons, and characterizing the scattering or exile of Israel as a prophetic long journey or symbolic long journey. Does the text support this view? Is there some compromise? 3, they cite the precedent for second Passover applying specifically to the northern kingdom. 2 Chronicles 30 is offered as a proof or support text for the employment of the second Passover provision for those of the northern kingdom who have escaped from their captors and are left. Verse 6. The argument declares, if we are Ephraim, and this gracious invitation was extended from Yahuwah to the northern kingdom through sovereign Hezekiah, then why would it not apply to us now, today? Point 4, according to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. Now, proponents read this to mean or include the festival of unleavened bread, which they view as inextricably tied to the Passover. Now, this study has already shown that this understanding is erroneous and not supported by Scripture, but there is much more. We have read what Numbers 9 has to say. It is now time to carefully compare the testimony of 2 Chronicles 30. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Yehudah and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of Yahuwah at Jerusalem to keep the Passover unto Yahuwah Elohim of Israel. For the king had taken counsel, and his princes and all the congregation in Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. For they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto Yahuwah Elohim of Israel at Jerusalem. For they had not done it of a long time, in such sort as it was written. So the posts went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Yehudah, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto Yahuwah Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Israel, and he will return to the remnant of you that are escaped out of the hand of the kings of Assyria. And be not like your fathers and like your brethren, which trespassed against Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, who therefore gave them up to desolation, as ye see. Now, be ye not stiff-necked, as your fathers were, but yield yourselves unto Yahuwah, and enter into his sanctuary, which he hath sanctified forever. And serve Yahuwah your Elohim, that the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. For if ye turn again unto Yahuwah, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that lead them captive, so that they shall come again into this land. For Yahuwah your Elohim is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you, if ye return unto him. So the posts passed from city to city through the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, even unto Zebulun, and they laughed them to scorn and mocked them. Nevertheless, diverse of Asher and Manasseh and of Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Yerushalayim. Also in Yehudah, the hand of Elohim was to give them one heart to do the commandment of the king and of the princes by the word of Yahuwah. And there were assembled at Yerushalayim much people to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the second month, a very great congregation. And they arose and took away the altars that were in Yerushalayim, and all the altars for incense took they away, and cast them into the brook of Kidron. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed, and they sanctified themselves and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of Yahuwah. And they stood in their place after their manner, according to the law of Moses, the man of Elohim. The priests sprinkled the blood which they received of the hand of the Levites. For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Therefore, the Levites had the charge of the killing of the Passovers for every one that was not clean, to sanctify them unto Yahuwah. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Yahuwah pardon every one that prepareth his heart to seek Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of this sanctuary. And Yahuwah hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people, and the children of Israel that were present at Yerushalayim kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with great gladness. And the Levites and the priests praised Yahuwah day by day, singing with loud instruments unto Yahuwah. And Hezekiah spake comfortably unto all the Levites that taught the good knowledge of Yahuwah. And they did eat throughout the feast 7 days, offering peace offerings and making confession to Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And the whole assembly took counsel to keep another 7 days, and they kept another 7 days with gladness. For Hezekiah, king of Yehudah, did give to the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 7,000 sheep, and the princes gave to the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 10,000 sheep. And a great number of the priests sanctified themselves. And all the congregation of Yehudah, with all the priests and the Levites, and all the congregation that came out of Israel, and the strangers that came out of the land of Israel and that dwelt in Yahudah rejoiced. So there was great joy in Yerushalayim. For since the time of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, there was not the like in Yerushalayim. Then the priests, the Levites, arose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came up to his holy dwelling place, even unto heaven. So just who was King Hezekiah? Let's gather some facts from the passage in 2 Kings 18. And he, King Hezekiah, did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, according to all that David his father did. He removed the high places and brake the images and cut down the groves. He trusted in Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Yehudah, nor any that were before him. For he clave to Yahuwah and departed not from following him, but kept his commandments, which Yahuwah commanded Moses. Definitely, King Hezekiah is given high credentials for following all the commands of Yahuwah. In fact, more than any other king. So question, why then is King Hezekiah celebrating the 7 days of unleavened bread following the second month Passover when it is not instructed in the Torah of Numbers 9? And was it 2 festivals of unleavened bread in a row? Are there scriptural reasons? At that time, the priest had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, says verse 3. In other words, they were not purified for the first month Passover. The text also says the people had not gathered themselves to Yerushalayim, which was presently the designated place for corporate celebration, observance, and worship. So it was missed completely for these reasons. For they had not done it of a long time, says verse 5. Israel had gone so long without a Passover celebration that they were sure not to miss another one. So far, they are following the prescribed ordinances of Torah. The hand of Elohim was to give them one heart to do the commandment of the king, to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the second month. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. Everyone usually killed their own Passover lamb for each household, but this time the priests did it because the people were not cleansed. Verse 18 is interesting because it also says they celebrated otherwise or contrary to of what was written. They knew they were adding to the Torah command by attending Passover without first being purified. But this time it was an awe and holy worship for not being able to celebrate for such a long time. Let's note some documentation by John before we examine the word otherwise. John 11:55. And the Jews' Passover was nigh at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. Is there an antitype example here? We are always unclean until we accept Yahushua's sacrifice in our place to cover us and cleanse us. Note how the word otherwise is written in 2 Chronicles 30, verse 18, and how it shows something about the context of the verse. It is defined in the Hebrew as H3808, lo, a primitive particle, not, by implication, no, often used with other particles. In other words, they kept the Passover not as it was written, or Passover was kept without personal purification. They may have kept the days of unleavened bread. They may have kept the days of unleavened bread twice in a row, which is not written in Numbers 9 for the second month Passover. The king, leaders, priests, and people did not follow the exact Torah commands for the second month Passover. So what is the full conclusion of the matter for parts A, B, and C? Sunset theory destroys Yahuwah's schedule for the Passover festival in both the first month and the second month. But why? It is not acceptable to be partaking of the Passover meal on the first Sabbath, the first day of unleavened bread. All commands for Passover are celebrated during the 24 hours of the Passover day. While it is certainly true that our knowledge and observance is yet imperfect, according to 1 Corinthians 13:12, that reality should not be used as an excuse to confuse or dismiss what may be readily gleaned and literally understood from his revealed word. The secret things belong to Yahuwah, our Elohim, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever, so that we may follow all the words of this Torah. Deuteronomy 29:29. It is the glory of Elohim to conceal a matter and the glory of kings to search it out. Proverbs 25:2. A plain and comprehensive reading of the text relating to the second Passover provision is possible. Moreover, we would do well to remember that narrative is not prescriptive, meaning just because it's related to have occurred in the scripture doesn't mean there's a new or an everlasting command. The account in 2 Chronicles 30 describes a unique and isolated event, the specific circumstances of which neither apply to us nor exist today. We are the temple of Elohim. Messiah is the once for all offering, and circumcision of the heart is our cleansing and our purification. Hezekiah's second Passover is indicative, a telling, not imperative, a new everlasting command or set of instructions. Wrapping up the conclusion for part C. If one were unable to partake in the Passover celebration in the first month for excused Numbers 9 reasons, the Most High graciously extended a second chance to celebrate the Passover day in the second month. There is no Torah command to celebrate the 7 days of unleavened bread in the second month. There is no command to celebrate the Passover during both the first and second months, nor during only the second month. Proponents of these views hyperbolize or spiritualize the literal physical journey accommodated in Numbers 9, verse 10, and in 2 Chronicles 30, verse 3. One might argue that the logical conclusion of this defense is the disqualification from celebrating the Passover at all, as they remain away from or outside the land during even the second Passover. Many who take this position, proponents of the second Passover and unleavened bread in the second month, many actually agree with that, but they maintain that they feel it is more appropriate under the present circumstances to celebrate the second Passover in the second month rather than the first Passover in the first month. These should be lovingly encouraged or reminded to consider the severity of Numbers 9:13. Hezekiah prayed for the people, quote, Yahuwah, pardon everyone that prepareth his heart to seek Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary, end quote. And Yahuwah hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people. Verses 18 through 20. Hezekiah asked Yahuwah to pardon each one that could not be purified on time, so their worship would be acceptable. The whole assembly took counsel to keep another 7 days, and they kept another 7 days with gladness, according to verse 23. This verse may be speaking of a second round of the Festival of Unleavened Bread being kept immediately after the first. But that's not specified. What do we think? Then the priests, the Levites, arose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came up to his holy dwelling place, even unto heaven, according to verse 27. Did you notice these prayers ascended to the courts of heaven? Obviously, the people were accepted. All their celebrations, all of them were accepted, even though the extra celebrations were not commanded in Torah, especially in Numbers 9 for the second month Passover celebration. Soon, we will compare King Hezekiah's testimony to King Solomon, King Jeroboam, and King Josiah. Well, that settles that. We all know by now what the requirements were for the second month Passover. But does that mean that the second month Passover is to be celebrated today under these same conditions? Is there a chance we could have missed something important? What about the proponents who believe that we can still celebrate the second Passover also, or the second Passover only? Are they correct or possibly misguided? Part D, is the celebration of the Passover in the second month part of the everlasting covenant? There is a newfound gem in this study for these questions that will have to be answered by the requirements found in the Melchizedek priesthood study. Consideration of a newly discovered set of facts. 1, the everlasting blood-ratified covenant of the Melchizedek priesthood is found between the pages of Genesis 1:1 to Exodus 24:11. Nothing can be added or removed from this covenant. Point 2, Exodus 23 verses 14 through 17 confirms 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. These are listed as the Feast of Unleavened Bread, including Passover and Wave Sheaf, the Feast of the Harvest, Shavuot, and the Feast of Ingathering, Sukkot, at the end of the year. Leviticus 23 follows after Exodus 24:11 with more detail on the covenant feasts found in Exodus 23. 4 times it is mentioned, these are statutes forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. These are perpetual. The new stipulation for a second month Passover does not list this requirement for keeping the second month Passover as a perpetual command throughout all our generations if one becomes unclean or is on a long journey. It's time to examine the historical comparison of 4 kings and their unique ways of celebrating various feasts: King Solomon, King Jeroboam, King Hezekiah, and King Josiah. Take note of these facts and where the testimony of King Hezekiah fits into this Old Testament history. Date 1491 BC, Exodus 20 through 23. In the original covenant, the first month Passover is part of the everlasting covenant repeated at Mount Sinai. Date 1490 from Numbers 9. We see that Moses inquires of Yahuwah for a solution for those who could not celebrate the first month Passover, and Yahuwah added an additional law for this special request. In 1972 BC, we read that King Solomon kept tabernacles in the 7th month 2 times, back to back. There was no displeasure from Yahuwah, though. Will King Jeroboam, King Hezekiah, and King Josiah find the same favor with Yahuwah? Date 944 BC, apostasy, 28 years later. Jeroboam from the northern kingdom devised of his own heart an alternate timing for the Feast of Tabernacles in the 8th month and 15th day. There is no mention that King Jeroboam asked Yahuwah about this change to the 8th month, even if the harvest in the north was a month later. 1 Kings 12, verse 27 records that he changed the date because he did not want his people going south to Jerusalem for the 7th month feast. In 1 Kings 13, the altar split apart according to Yahuwah's sign because of Jeroboam's outright disobedience. This prophetic sign came true immediately. Certainly, Yahuwah regarded Jeroboam's decision as an utmost abomination. It was not accepted. Date 725 BC, 219 years later, is where we find Hezekiah's 2nd month Passover. It followed the allowable instructions for a 2nd month celebration given to Moses by Yahuwah, even though the circumstances were not directly related to being unclean from a dead body, but rather from being unsanctified in time for the 1st month Passover. No displeasure from Yahuwah is recorded. Date 623 BC, 102 years later. In 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 8, Hilkiah found the book of the law. In 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 21, we read that Josiah kept the 1st month Passover as it was written in the book of the covenant. Then it says in verse 24, Josiah put away all the abominations in the land according to the words of the law, which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found. That must have been the book of the law. This is the testimony of where they slew the Passover lambs into the night. And again, no displeasure from Yahuwah is recorded. What else should we take into consideration? The stipulations for the Numbers 9 Passover is not an everlasting covenant command. Remember, no laws could be added to or removed from the covenant words written on the tables of stone that had come from the book of the covenant. Remember also, Numbers 9:6, that there were certain men that were defiled by a dead body. They were not allowed to participate in the first month Passover. Therefore, they asked Moses what they were to do. Moses' reply to them in Numbers 9:8 is, quote, "Stand still, and I will hear what Yahuwah will command concerning you," end quote. In other words, Moses requested instruction directly from Yahuwah on this situation, which in turn established a new law within the book of the law. This means there was no former stipulation given within the everlasting covenant or the book of the law. Remember Yahuwah's reply in Numbers 9, verses 10 and 11. The people could celebrate the Passover on the 14th day of the second month only if they were unclean and or if they were on a long journey. Did you notice that Moses did not ask for an exemption for being on a long journey, but Yahuwah added it for the people anyway? Remember, no laws could be added or removed from the everlasting covenant laws, but it was different for the temporary laws included in the book of the law. A few more things for consideration. The temporary laws given and recorded in the book of the law extended only until Yahusha uttered the words, "It is finished." At that point, the Aaronic priesthood, the instructions for the sanctuary, and all the sacrifices and oblations were ended. In John 4:21 and 23, Yahusha answered the question of the woman at the well when she wondered about where they were to worship. He declared, "The hour is coming when you shall neither on this mountain in Samaria nor in Jerusalem worship the Father, but the hour is coming and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth." So what is the conclusion of the whole matter? And what is the surprise for part D? We no longer are under the temporary laws for ritual cleansing from contact with the dead. In Yahusha, we are all clean as kings and priests under his kingdom and dominion. Therefore, there is no more need for a requirement to keep the Passover in the second month. If you are on a long journey, just stop and keep the Passover wherever you are. So what is the surprise for new proponents today? There is no reason to keep the second month Passover also. There is no reason to keep the second month Passover only. There is no reason to keep the second month Passover ever. That is, when you are engaging covenant calendar with Yahusha. Since the offering of the ultimate Passover, the very Lamb of Elohim, we are now completely under the perfect everlasting, blood-ratified covenant laws. Have you heard it said, covenant calendar is not a salvational issue? This might be a good time to rethink that position to be sure you are on the right salvational path. A significant reminder: when we choose to serve Yahusha in everything, we also seek to be in alignment with him in all areas, even if they seem small and insignificant. Deuteronomy 12:32. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. The end. If you enjoyed this study, please join us live each week. Sign up with Covenant Calendar Club for the Friday and Sabbath Zoom meetings, including live discussion. Sign up at studythecalendar.com/sign up. May Yahuwah assist your desire to understand and also your decision to process any new information. Send your questions and/or responses to questions@studythecalendar.com. Thank you and shalom.